a lot of places, a lot of countries ban flights from there, and a couple other countries, a couple other African countries very quickly. In my estimation, I find it was a bit premature. I think, and I feel like it only because it was African countries, they were willing to do it so quickly. Customer service, I've never gotten bad customer service from a white person. I've always gotten bad customer service from black people in the US.
Whenever I would get the worst customer service whenever I went into either Oriental Asian or East Indian Asian people. Anytime I would get that'd be when I'd feel the most disrespected.
Serious?
Yes. Okay. But like they're singing a song and they use the word. Nah, that's bullshit.
No, but there's real cause on that.
There's pretend that they're hurt by that. There's pretend that they're irritated by that. They're not. If she was still holding my hair when she said it, I might have slapped her hand.
The thing is, for me, them thing the real do what I mean. Right? Like, no, if I knew, if I was a prison officer and I knew another prison officer who was aiding in them being able to attack me or my fellow co-workers, I think I'd just deal with the prison officer. The views expressed in this podcast are simply the opinions of the guests and the hosts from their perspective. These opinions aren't necessarily facts, nor with the intent to defame any person or establishment. This is not legal, medical, financial, nor spiritual advice. Hey, welcome back. It's the Alternative Perspectives podcast. And we're here again, one more week. We're doing this thing. And if you're looking for us on YouTube or on any one of your podcasting platforms, look for the app 868. A simpler name, easier to find. That's, why we shortened it with the app 868. Mm-hmm. Now, lawyer, Jude in the building. Yeah, we here. Mm-hmm. One of the hot topics, we tend to touch on every now and again, and we tend not to get into too deep because we know it's a very touchy topic. And people could get very emotional when it comes to this. Yeah. And it's race.
The question we asking each other, and we hope you all will have opinions on and comment on as well, is whether or not we as a society focus too much on race and racism.
When I say we as a society, want Trinidad and Tobago?
All over.
All right.
Western society. When I say Western society, places, we're not talking about, in Asia and Africa and those other places, but anywhere basically where Western culture is the prevalent culture, are we focusing a little bit too much on race?
I won't leave out Africa yet, but we'll get into that a bit later. Right. The thing is, as I say, for me, I never really focused on race much, and I never saw racism as a big issue for me.
Right.
And I think there might have been times where I have downplayed some people's situation or circumstances, in their race battle, I guess.
Okay.
And so I think for me, I think sometimes I could say I find other people beat up too much on this race thing, but then I'm saying probably my situation different.
Well, when I say we, I don't mean you and I.
No. Yeah. I just say
you and I.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So, okay, for some context for people who might be tuning in for the first time. So, somehow we always end up some way, shape, or form ending up talking about race, no matter where we start in the conversation.
I think because it's always a hot button topic.
Right. It's sort of injected into almost everything. Mm-hmm. So we always end up there. And we know we've always known there's a greater conversation to be had about it. But we always kind of stumble upon it towards the end of the podcast. And we didn't plan to talk about race. So we always be like, nah, next time, next we had to devote something to it. And I personally, used to like the fact that we didn't get into it because that's something I hate talking about. I hate talking about it because I feel like it's one of those pointless conversations. It's one of those conversations where you don't have a chance to make any inroads. Not that I'm trying to convert people, but because you see a problem and you kind of want to steer society away from it. But I've come to the firm conclusion that there are people that don't want to solve the problem. They want to head to the cliff. They head into the cliff and they don't want you to get in their way at all. So it frustrates me when I kind of get worked up about something and then you just realize it doesn't matter how much you could talk till they're blue in your face. People are still going to hold these feelings. But I still think it's something over this week, because I know I told you, all right, let's finally tackle it,
Right.
this week here. And it's because over the course of the week, I started saying, you know what? First of all, we've been teasing it a lot, and we should eventually get into it, because people kind of get fed up, like, why you keep saying you'll talk about it and not talk about it. And then secondly, kind of like what you were saying to me last week, yes, I might have this defeatist attitude that it may not get through to many people, but you know what? The first time I heard sentiments like this expressed by somebody else, I thought I was the only one. And when I heard somebody else express it, I felt it gave me some comfort. Like, exactly, there are other people out there who view this thing the same way I do. So maybe it's incumbent on us to
touch on it.
Yeah.
Bring that alternative perspective.
Precisely. Yes.
Right. Sorry. So as we were saying earlier on, there's the discussion I raise in nearly any and everything. When it comes to the workplace, it comes to movies, whatever it may be, music, whatever it may be, right? Sometimes even probably looking for somewhere to live, buying a home, all those things. Sometimes race could play a part,
or people might inject race into it. Yes.
All right, inject race into it.
Yeah.
So for me, me being a Douglas person, a mixed person.
For the people out there who don't know what Douglas is.
Douglas is a mixed person.
Mixed race person. Yeah.
Mixed race person. I could say in Trinidad and Tobago, I never had much racist encounters. I had one that I can identify, which was in Tobago. And that still never bothered me. But, a young lady has kind of like, I don't even say heckling her, but like, hey, I want to say good morning or good day or whatever.
Yeah.
And she was like, you are Trini? I was like, yeah. She's like, well, you do like Trini. And my hair was a bit longer than this. And she pulled my hair. And she's like, she
pulled your hair?
Yeah. And she's like, and I do like Indian too.
She pulled your hair?
Yeah. She pulled my hair to identify that,
Wow.
Yeah.
She pulled your hair to insult you like that?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
that's a real obnoxious individual you encountered there.
I mean, it really didn't bother me.
No, I'm not saying it should have bothered you.
I know, I'm just saying, yeah.
Because you violate my space now, but you touch my hair. It's one thing if you touch my hair to give me a compliment, or you touch my hair, for us to have a tender conversation after. But if you're going to insult me, don't touch me too. Leave me alone. Stand up far and insult me. Don't come and touch my person and then...
I hear in here, but that don't bother me. If you swing at me, then it's a different story. But if you want to touch me here to say exhibit A, like, okay.
You could have pointed here, you could have said, but you touch me here.
I think some people be real offended by that.
I might have lashed your hand. I tell you. If she was still holding my hair when she said it, I might have slapped your hand.
The thing is, for me, them thing real what I mean. Like,
no, I'm not saying the race part. No, I'm saying you're insulting me and you're touching my body while you're doing it.
To me, it wasn't an insult. To be very honest, this is what I don't like, and this is what I don't like. Fine. No, for me, I would say, well, probably affects at this kind of hair. In my mind, probably that's what bothering you. I don't know. But as I say, so for me, probably my experience anyway, I think makes it much different for me to understand other people's battles now, boy. Because somebody else, like, that might have been, disrespect, and they might have, well, for me, it's like, whatever.
Like I said, the disrespect, listen, I wouldn't say that I've never been bothered by hearing somebody use a racial slur towards me. I have
Serious?
been. Yeah, I have been. I have gotten into altercations. I think I mentioned this to you a couple times. I've gotten into altercations because of it. But in hindsight, it wasn't necessarily the racial slur that tripped me. It was just, I have a problem with disrespect in general, right? And so if I see like you're trying to belittle me or insult me or disrespect me in a particular way, especially back then, it was a lot easier to fly off the handle. And so you could have said anything to me. But once you said it with enough intent and I realized you had that venom back in your statement. So But if you had asked me then, I would have pretended as if it was the race aspect of it that tripped me up. But it wasn't really that. It was, they could have said anything. They could have told my mother at the point in time. I would have reacted in the same way. Because it was really the disrespect I was reacting to. But I forget that sometimes. So I would say something similar to what you would, because since then, there have been many occasions when people have used racist slurs towards me or referred to me in ways that I guess they might have wanted to make me, they were trying to make me feel less of a person, and it didn't bother me. So as forget now, boy, back in your past, you did actually trip off on people. But when I really looked at it, it was a disrespect, and I didn't like you. You know what I mean? We were on the cusp of a confrontation anyway. You understand? So the race aspect of it, what you said wasn't really the part that stung me. It was just the disrespect, and that's what I responded to.
Because here's the weird thing about that, right? Like there are some people, like and I'll point out, like in the States, in the US, there's some people would really like a person, right? A black, but let's say a white artist or white person. They're real cool with that artist, and then the artist end up saying,
I think that's just pretense. I think a lot of that is pretense. I think when they pretend that they don't... Now, there's a difference between them saying something... Like, for instance, if it's somebody, you catch a video of them and they're saying these words disparagingly, that's a different story. Like, you hear them talking, you know, as I say, like they're using insulting language now. They're trying to be insulting. They're using the word in the disparaging way, not in the term of endearment, as we like to refer to it. But you know, like they're singing a song and they use the word. Nah, that's bullshit.
No, but it's real close on it.
There's pretend that they're hurt by that. There's pretend that they're irritated by that. They're not. I don't believe that they are. I don't believe that they hear people use that word in the same way that black people use it, but they just have this stern constitution that once it's somebody. So I mean, where's the line drawn? If the person's quarter black, if they have a black grandfather, what shit you telling me? You know what I'm saying?
That line is real move according to the situation.
I think a lot of it is pretense, and I think it's because of what coming back to the question. I think because we like to inject that sort of element into things when it doesn't necessarily belong there. Because, all right, let me give you an example, right? Like Andrew Schultz. He has a show with Charlamagne God, who's a black person. Right. If for some reason the surname sounded weird, so I didn't know what you're talking about. Right. And then, he has the show with Akash Singh or whatever. Yeah. And he will not say... nigga. I know. Or even words close to it. He starts to fumble. Yeah, I know. Great fear of if you mention this word. But what I'm saying is I do not believe, and a lot of black people admit that too, like, especially when it's a white person that they know and they're familiar with, and they hear the person use it not in a insulting way. It's like, nah, and a lot of black people are like, nah, that's bullshit. I have white friends who say that all the time, and I cool with that. So I believe that it's the people who would pretend to get outraged when he says it, they're lying, they're pretending. I know what you mean, but I don't think that. I think a part of it is it's kind of like there's the tribe I'm in, and the tribe, these are the rules of the tribe. So and another thing is it gives you a little bit of power over that other group. You could don't say this word. Yeah, nah. And that is one of the weirdest things I find. If that is where you're looking to gain your power, I think something wrong with it, in my opinion. Because, first of all, in my opinion, I see that is the epitome of racism. The fact that somebody cannot say a particular word. I'm not saying to use it, as they say disparagingly. They can't even sing that word, right? Without this group of people acting up. I think that is racism. Because they are a particular race, they can't use a particular word. A word that you use all the time. And they use it in the same way that you use it. Yeah. Right? I think it is one of those power trips. It's like, and I mean, to be fair, some people say, well, all right, okay, well, we disenfranchise. So at least let us keep that now. Let's keep them, let's at least have them walking on eggshells. Like, so, they shouldn't say that. And no matter how comfortable they feel, they shouldn't say that. I just think that's petty, and I think that is because we fixated on things like that we're not moving forward. Petty, but I think it's petty. I think it's it's a way to maintain a degree of power. And like you just said, if that's where you're looking to find your power, something wrong though.
Listen, wrong. Because I ingest a lot of American content, and I'm like, and then somebody said the word, and somebody said the N-word, and they sang the N-word, they were singing, and it slipped out.
Yeah, and somebody recorded them.
Yeah.
I think there was this situation with a guy from Netflix who was in the course of a conversation in a boardroom. They were talking about words that shouldn't be said, and he used the word in the context of saying it's something we shouldn't say.
Yeah.
And apparently he used this word in a team meeting as a word to not use, but he kept using it. And then when he was sat down with some HR folks who happened to be black, he said it again. And so...
Fellow white people, this isn't that hard.
Yes, his name is John. Yeah.
Don't say it.
Jonathan Freeland.
Just don't say it. Don't sing it. Don't quote it.
No.
Don't say it.
Yes.
That's it. That's all you have to do.
And somebody in the boardroom pretended or claimed that they felt offended or whatever when he used the term, and I think he lost his work. He lost his job because of that. And again, I do not know. I don't know if it was, I wasn't in that room, so I don't know. Maybe you got the impression he really wants to say the word in a disparaging way, and he just used that excuse. But
I really don't care though. Most of the time, people call me fat. They don't say it, and the most of the time they say it to be
endearing,
nice.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Oh God, they say, God, boy, looking rosy. I mean, I think if I'm anti-that too, we got a problem. But okay, and because well, the difference is race is something you can't change, but we're not talking about what they're changing. I'm fat now, right? So if somebody see me now,
it's an insult. It's an insult,
and so it doesn't bother me. I cannot. It will never bother me.
And listen, and this is what I mean when I say that we are heading down the wrong road when we focus on these things. The reason why race ends up in almost all, every time we have a podcast and we can start talking about football is somewhere up there, is because we live in a society that injects isms into everything. Racism and sexism and there's not ism, but homophobia and transphobia, and we just inject it. We live in a society where people are sitting waiting to judge what you say and what you do, to look for the element that they could pretend to be outraged about to make a big scene. And that's fine for white people. Let white people sit down and do that all day long, right? Because as far as I'm concerned, if they have nothing better to do with the time, then have at it. But we don't have time for that shit.
I agree.
We don't have time to if we want to address the issues that we have to address and make the strides forward that we want to make, we don't have time to pick them kind of fights.
And I mean, this is one of the reasons I must say I could appreciate somebody like Kanye, as he might have some crazy times or say some weirdness. We could appreciate him because one of the things he said, if America is such a racist place, and I'm making it, he said, I mean, wait tell him, man. He said, you think I should be bothered now by race?
Well, I didn't hear him express that, but I mean, the obvious response people will have to him, and to some it has a little bit of merit. It will be, Kanye, you are unusual, right? You are not the average Negro, ain't like you. So we can't do what you doing. We don't have super creative talent, and we can make music and fashion and whatever. So that's how they would respond to him. They'll say, "Hey, listen, you will make it," but we talk about the average individual, and that's why I keep saying, why don't we exalt the average individuals? Because there are a number of average individuals who are able to, and this is outside of the US, everywhere.
Right.
They're average individuals without. When I say average, I mean just like everybody else, they may have a gift, but it's not the rarest of gifts. They don't play a sport. They're not, supremely talented in any creative field, and they make it. And and by make it, I don't mean they become billionaires, but they provide well for their family, and they set the foundation for for wealth in the future. They make sure that the generations that come after have a good platform and foundation. Why can't we all just do that? Why can't we all just focus our energies on doing that?
I think because that is harder to do than to
Right.
point fingers.
Right.
And you see it right here in Trinidad. You would hear them talk about it because in this country, people on the outside, our country is, I would say, I'm not going to quote the actual statistics, but I would say it's 30% Negro, 30% Indian, 30% mix, and then a couple percent
We don't have a black
Syrian.
minority here. That's
Right?
the point.
Yeah.
We don't have a black minority
Right.
here. Yeah.
And the thing is here is Indian and Negro, and you would hear a lot of people talk about them Indian and them. Them Indian and them, they look out for each other, them, right? And you'd be like, okay, there's always say when UNC, if UNC win, they go get the Indian and all the money. And
So don't vote them in.
yeah, don't vote them in.
Vote the African Party in, who don't do the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? But they don't do the same thing. But I mean, I don't even think, I think that's what people say, but that's not the reality. The reality is that I think there are opportunities available at any point in time, whatever government is in power here. Now, if you're politically affiliated, don't get me wrong, that goes a long way in this place.
Yeah.
That goes a long way in this place. But in terms of once you out, and if you're politically connected, it don't matter what your color is, right? If you're politically
Exactly,
connected,
yeah.
it doesn't matter what your color is. But if you're not politically connected, the same opportunities essentially exist for all of us, no matter what party. In terms of the scraps that they give out, this is what you use, what you do with these scraps, right? Now, when other people take these scraps and they build and they build and they build, and a generation later, they have a house, 4 times the size of yours, and you sit down here and you never made use of your scraps, you then look at that side now with envy. And instead of seeking to emulate their behavior and say, all right, okay, I ain't saying to become like them. They might have some aspects of their behavior that not cool.
Yeah.
But you take what serve them? What qualities and attributes serve them? Let me mimic that and let me move forward.
But you see, and in the Indian and Negro discussion that we you do like a Negro.
Indian and African.
Indian and African. Yeah, the Indian.
I mean, I use the term Negro when I'm trying to be pejorative. I just don't like that word, and I don't know. I can't really explain why, but I just find that word that bothers me more than nigger.
Serious?
Yes. That bother, but it doesn't matter who says it. I just hear that word. It sounds too scientific, dealing with a race of people.
You
know what I'm saying?
for me,
you might as well say Negroid. You know what I mean? That just sounds.
and that's just to show you how weird that race thing is, and how people is tie so much things into it. Because when I say it really and truly, to me that just be the easiest word to say.
And that is the most I wouldn't say politically correct, but it's like the scientifically, well, Negroid would be the scientific way to describe it, but it's linguistically, it seems like the right word to say. It's the
and I never measured it with all that. To be real honest with you, that's just the word that just roll off my tongue. And you know that because we for years you just be like, damn, why you gotta say this? And for me, because I don't know, I African, I just think that's just real African Negro. And you understand what I'm saying?
all right.
But
The Indian African
right,
thing,
but the
yes.
Indian African thing here in this country, I think, like with most African people, and some people might get vexed with me, but I have some African, actually more African than Indian, right?
Okay.
Yeah, because
Right. Yeah, that's
Yeah?
true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
so, I think, and I'll say we. So I could say we and come there, all of them, right? And I actually identify more with a trans race. And I identify more with the African side of things, right?
Yeah.
I think
As do most Douglas, to be fair, that I've encountered.
serious.
Yeah.
I think we like the faster life now, boy. Most of us. And when I say we like the instant gratification, and I think that is one of the things that keeps our race back. And then when we realize it come like, we don't make those kind of weird investments where you just buy a piece of land that that might never develop, or you don't know what's the situation with it.
And hold on to it.
Right, but we go buy the car, and we go buy the wherever else.
Yeah.
And the
Things to
sneakers
look-
and
to
gold
to gain the status. Now.
right. And clothes and expensive clothes or whatever. Take trips, wherever you do.
Right.
And then they know, because let's be real, plenty people right here in Trinidad and Tobago would laugh at how some of the Indian people, how they dress. What kind of shoes is that? You understand? What should that old car they driving? And even if you want to carry it out to the States, plenty black people, because the black people are the cooler people in the US, let's be real, most of them.
Well, I mean, in general, I think black people drive culture.
Right.
Yeah.
And
not just in the States, I mean everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you laugh at the white people who dress in weird and they wear and they...
All the Asians. I mean, because, and I say, and I point to them specifically because the white people are the dominant race, right? So you're looking at other people who come to the white man's land essentially and try, just like you, to make your way. And you would laugh at some of their customs, you'd laugh at some of their behavior, you'd laugh at the way they dress, you would laugh at the way, or you would demean their lifestyle in general. You know, they're not they're not cool, they're not hip, they're not driving culture, like you say, they're not doing any of that. But then in 2 generations, a family that came to the country unable to speak English, with nothing in their pocket, has a business and children that are going to university with a tuition paid, not with $1 gazillion in debt when they come out.
Right.
And that's something that happens over and over. Now, there are African immigrants that do that. I saw that for myself when I was in the UK, that there are African immigrants who do that, but not in the amount, nowhere near in the proportion that you would see Asian immigrants do it.
But the thing is, I think people will tell you, for whatever reason, they will try to inject slavery there, though.
Well, yeah, and when you were going to reach the end of your point there just now, I was going to tell you, what they would say to that is that, black people, because of how they've been dehumanized and they've had the culture stripped away from them, they're just fighting for status. And that's true. But then you have to stop. You have to stop.
Oh, no. Let's say, I don't want to say stop. Well, for me, I wouldn't say stop. Change your strategy. So you could attain the status, but do it a different way.
Well, you have to stop doing certain. You have to stop doing one thing, which is seeking the status instantly, right? You have to understand that the way that unless you're one of the extremely lucky ones, you're, a gifted child actor or whatever, you're not going to change your status immediately, right? You need to learn delayed gratification. So you refuse the opportunity to get a little status gain now so that you can get a lot of status gain in 10 years.
Exactly.
Right? That's something you have to learn. It doesn't matter what happened 100 zillion years ago. You still have to learn to do that. Because nothing can change what happened 100 zillion years ago.
I think that second part you just say is very important, because you see when they say it doesn't matter what happened 100 zillion years ago. People, whenever slavery happened, right? 400 and something years. Some people say, well, you see, why? They tell it, because of that, we suffering with the trauma still. And right?
All right. But how do you address that? By indulging in the same behavior? If you go to a therapist, if you had childhood trauma, right? And because you had childhood trauma, you now exhibit antisocial behavior. If you go to a therapist, is the way that the therapist is going to treat you, is it going to be to tell you to continue engaging in antisocial behavior? No, they'll sit you down and say, hey, I believe this is coming from here, and it's coming from here, and it's coming from here. These are some mechanisms, some habits you should try to form that are going to chip away at the problem. You're not going to change it in an instant, but you could chip away at the problem. And they're not going to tell you, well, yeah, because they understand it. What is the behavior you're displaying now has its roots in some sort of trauma that you experienced as a child. But we can't go back in the past and change that. All we could do is adjust your behavior from here, go forward.
Go forward, right. Yeah.
So that's all you have to. So you have to focus on that, and it's a hard road. I get that. It's a hard road. It's not going to be easy. I am not saying I am perfect. I had all of those hang-ups. I am much further back than I could or should have been at this point in time in my life, because I did a lot of that shit. Buying things I could not have afforded, and not thinking about investments and all that bullshit. So I'm not saying it's easy, but when I look back at my life or I look at my current position and I see the things that I have not attained, I know it's 98% my fault. Because there are always decisions. I just kept making bad decisions. And even when I knew better, I didn't do better.
So you're really telling me it's not white supremacy or it's not the white man, boy?
It's not even my parents. It's not even my parents. And that is probably where the buck should stop in many instances. Your personal, your childhood and your personal household. But I would stop and say, yeah. Okay, maybe if they had done certain things, it might have helped to inculcate some ideas in my head. But the point is, there was a point in time when I knew better and I still made the decision to do shit. And that's my fault. That could only be on me. And even if I want to put it on them, how I go move forward now? Ask them to go to do better? Go back and go put me back in your womb and build a better foundation for me. No, I can't do that. I can't do that. All I could do is look forward. And they like you were saying, it's hard to do that. And it's easy to just, externalize all the issues.
You see, the thing is, where I think sometimes again in such a dread routine, one, and I think sometimes those instant gratifications make you feel real good now, boy. Like the hit of dopamine or whatever you get from, that weird spend or whatever the case may be.
And not just the weird spend, the emotional gratification that they get from wallowing in victimhood. Because that's the more important thing.
But I honestly can't. That's not very hard for me to even understand. I'll be very, very honest with you. I honestly can't understand that wallowing in victimhood. I don't understand it. I don't understand how somebody could play that victim card and be a victim all the time
and feel better about it.
Yeah,
well, imagine this. Imagine you did not have the will to turn your situation around. Because the reason why you and I aren't like that is because we see it as helplessness. And it's one thing to be in the situation that you're in, but to then have no kind of you feel as if you have no control over improving a situation. Well, it's better to put me in the box one time. So for people like you and I, what we do is we would focus on how can we turn it around.
Right. How to get out of it. This is actually, I can't see somebody doing that and feeling good.
But if you didn't have the will to turn yourself around, how would be the only way to cope? The only way to cope would be to focus on the part of the problem that's not your fault.
I hear you, but I think even if I was doing that, I would have still just been real depressed now. But
I think some of them are depressed. I think some of them are they might be clinically depressed, but I think many of the people I mean the people who really, really focus on it and everything for them is race and they're always looking for the fault and this is the one, looking for the racist angle anyway. I think they're very bitter people. I think they are people who, it's two types of people. One, the people who doing it for material gain. So the race hustlers, the ones who make like content, the politicians who do that to get votes, and the people who make,
and it's a lot of people know. A lot of people,
right? Yeah. The ones who want a social media following, the ones who produce podcasts or whatever, who want to get, so they get monetary gain from that. So they're doing it on purpose.
Colin Kaepernick and them.
Right, precisely. They're doing it on purpose, right? But the rest of them are bit generally. When you encounter somebody like that, that's a bitter. That's somebody who's always angry and always dissatisfied and always covering up the insecurities. So yeah, I think plenty of them might have some slight mental health issues too.
And Mouse Jones.
Mouse Jones?
Well, yeah, he's the host of, or one of the hosts from the Guys Next Door podcast.
No.
Yeah, no. I used to listen to the podcast, they discuss, relationship things, some stuff, whatever. But anytime this man got a chance to put down white people and bad talk white people, bash white people, this man would do that. And I have no greater, allegiance to white people, but I had to unfollow them and unsubscribe from their podcast because oh God, boy, dog, boy.
The negativity.
Yeah, boy. I don't want to hear about them. Tell me about all they're doing, what your experiences are like, or whatever. And I tell people, Jude, in my years traveling to the US, in terms of bad customer service, I've never gotten bad customer service from a white person. I've always gotten bad customer service from black people in the US. You understand what I'm saying?
I consider myself lucky, but I would say you're lucky for that.
Serious, you get bad customer service from?
I've gotten bad customer service from everybody.
Serious?
As a matter of fact, I probably have gotten worse. The worst customer service I've ever gotten has normally been from Asian people.
Okay. Well, but that was not really in the US, or that's...
No, anywhere. Canada, the States, England.
Well, I didn't come across much Asians in... I mean, I bought Chinese food and thing, but I mean... Yeah.
But in New York, whenever I would get the worst customer service whenever I went into either Oriental Asian or East Indian Asian people. Anytime I would get... That'd be when I'd feel the most disrespected.
Serious?
Yes.
Okay, well, I probably haven't been to those places.
Yeah.
And that for me... I tell people all the time, even if these people faking it because it's a job to do so, I applaud them. Even if you don't like me as a black person, but you could fake it to do a job, I applaud you for that.
I have a real problem even being concerned with whether you like me or not.
Well,
I'm not saying you are, but you see, as you mentioned that's another thing I just don't, I can't get. Like, why am I good? Why would I spend an ounce of my time trying to discover whether you like? Now, let's say I'm going to do a business transaction with you, like I'm trying to pitch you something for you to pitch you a sale or I'm going for you to interview, and I'm wondering if you go hire me. I might spend a couple of seconds thinking about whether you might be one of those racist individuals. And I have found myself considering it if ever I've been interviewed by an Indian person. Right. I have thought I wonder if you are one of those kinds of Indians, right? The type that have a real...
But when you say that, it's kind of like racist thoughts.
To think that there might be Indian people out there who have deep hatred for black people.
Yeah, to think it, because
because I've heard Indian people express that.
No,
but me.
But the thing is, the ones who say it, then I could say, well, yeah.
No. What I'm saying, I before I encounter you, I wonder if you are one of those. I'm not saying that you are.
No, this is what I'm saying. But the fact that you're thinking that first, because for me, I don't think if somebody is a racist person, no matter white, Indian, whoever, right? I don't ever think if the person or Chinese, if they're racist, until you show me something that make me believe that you might be.
All right, okay. Let me put it this way. So let's say I get not another call, because if you call me for an interview, I would assume that you're not, right? But let's say I walk into the place and for whatever reason you wouldn't have known who I was, and I walk into the place and I see an Indian person about to interview me. It would cross my mind for a couple seconds, if you are one of those Indian people that have expressed to me before that you have no time for the nigger and them, right? Because I've heard them express it. And I've heard them express it to me.
All right.
So I would wonder I'm not saying...
So, no, and this, just now, and this is where I want to say, because I understand your point, and so I don't think I needed to go too much deeper and said, for me, why that I may not have ever had that experience. People may not have expressed that to me, because in this country, being mixed race, I think they don't really, neither side push that.
Right, you might not have heard that expressed around you.
So for me, I come like I am naive, if you want to put it like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm not. And I've had... And I don't know if I ever told you about the incident by Price Mart.
Yeah.
And as soon as the man jumped on the car, that's the first thing he said. That is all the nigga like to do. You come to fight. I had the only reason I exited the vehicle was because he started walking towards the vehicle. You understand? I didn't. Well, to get some context, quick thing. I was driving in the car park, and there was he had his son, and his son was running about the car park, not looking where he was going. But I saw him, and I was never going to hit him. But I guess he thought I came close to hitting him or whatever. So he started to go outside the car, and I opened the door, and he and I assume it's his brother or something. So started to advance towards me, and the first thing that came out of his mouth, all of the nigga like to do is shoot and kill people. Yeah, your gun? That's what he said to me. So I know they exist. I'm not saying they're all Indian people.
No, but I'm
not saying that
the thing is, no, don't get me wrong, that is a racist statement, right? Because clearly, the first thing he judged you on or categorized you in was based on race. But my thing is it a situation where he is making a statement based on whether it be skewed statistical data
whether or not I know what you're trying to get at, whether he would have a reason to feel that, African. No, as I say, I only exited the car because he was coming towards me. I was never the aggressor in the situation.
Right, I understand.
But forget all of that. What I'm saying, the way he said it to me, I knew that he taught in if he taught in that feeling because somebody he was raped, well, not maybe raped, but he was robbed by a black man before or whatever. They're living in an area and is get harassed by, I don't know. But the point is, I can tell he's taught in a feeling towards my race of people. So all I'm saying is that I know that they exist, that they are people. They don't necessarily, they aren't, just people who have a blank slate and, prove to me what they X. No, there are people out there who taught in a particular feeling towards people of this race.
But which I think leads to a real important discussion. A really important. No, people can't say, Dan, that can't ever make sense, but probably naive me, right? I think, so can you say that sometimes some degree of racism or prejudice, right? Because racism is a form of prejudice, right? Could have a base, if you understand what I'm saying. It could have some sort of justification from...
I think everybody has a reason why they feel they hate somebody. They could have grown up in a household where that was drilled into them. It could have been, like I say, maybe they're living in an area and they've been harassed by the little gangsters in the area and whatever, and they develop a feeling. And I'm not here to be a psychologist or to judge whether you should or shouldn't. And all I'm saying is, the only thing I said that to say was that it sometimes runs into my mind. If I need to get something from you, I would think for a while, I wonder if it's use one of them. No, I'm going to try not to let it come over in the way I deal with you. But it will cross my mind. I'm not going to go in there feeling, well, it was all hunky-dory and everybody just has all these, we just have, jolly thoughts about each other. No, you could be one of those. No, I'm not saying those who exist on the other side too. I'm not saying that there are African people that toting real hatred for Indian people. So all I'm saying is...
All white people.
Right, exactly. But all I'm saying is that that's the only time racism even enters if I need to get something from you. And so now I'm entering into a negotiation and I want to know, I wonder if you's one of them. Right? Yeah. But that is it. After that, your thoughts about me don't enter my brain at all. You don't like my skin tone. You don't like my hair texture. I don't give a shit.
No, probably if I had the same experiences that you had, I may not deal with it the same way. I don't think it would bother me or I would have sleepless nights, but I would be one of the people who want to know why. Not because I want you to like me or not, but I just like to know what the history is like. Like, what caused you to reach here? Is it something you were taught at home? Is it that you were robbed? Is it that when you watch the news, everybody who looks like me, or everybody looks like
everybody who's every time I see a mugshot, it's somebody who looks like me, right?
If it's something like that, then I would be like, nah, I want to hear your side. That's me. I genuinely just want to know, like.
Well, I mean, I kind of, because growing up in the household I grew up with, I had my grandmother's brother, one of them in particular, more than one, but one of them in particular, used to express some very racist thoughts all the time, right? And it's been explained to me how the relations between the races soured in the early stages because there was a certain degree of jealousy, the way that the indentured laborers came here as some of the benefits they were afforded that Africans weren't. And then when Africans were liberated and run away from the fields, they kind of, used to watch the Indians who work in the fields as if, haha, look at you, you're a dotish man farming, I in the tongue. And so they used to, tease some Indians, call them country bookie and things.
No, so, we have never had this conversation, right? This part of the conversation. And I'm telling you now that from my Indian grandfather, he gave me the other side of the story.
Right. Okay. Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Right, exactly.
And so I'll let you finish and then I'll give you...
Well, that's it. So I could see how it would have emanated, how it would have festered on the other side. Yeah.
Right. So... what he I would admit that based on what my grandmother said and what he said, he was disowned by his Indian family because he married outside of the
race.
I don't know if it was the race or the religion, right? But he married outside of whatever it was, right?
Being not Hindu,
right? Because his family was Hindu, right? And what he told us, is that plenty times when they finish with the fields and they take in their produce, however, this is after they finish with in the indentured.
Under the indentured
contracts, right? Some of them got land and whatever, and they decided to plant and whatever the case may be. They say that Negro people will trouble them, and sometimes some of them will take their things, right? They would take advantage of them. They would top them up basically and take some of the produce.
on your bike and say, hey, look, he only kicks your bike there, and kick him down and
take his things. And he said that is one of the reasons that Indian people had this particular view of African people. Now, the thing is, I don't know, I wasn't there. That's his side of the story. And for me, I kind of always understood, well, okay, I could understand where the bad feelings may be. You understand what I'm saying? And we didn't do that. So we like, I didn't do that, nothing. Why should they? But then, of course, these things trickle along and they carry these stories and they carry these stories. And then they have a particular perception of either side.
Right.
So for me, that's why I never really get involved too much and beat up over race too much.
And that's why all you could do is affect you. I can't go back in the past and deal with that. I can't change nobody. All I could do is, all right, Breds, listen, I go deal with things in this way. I will wait for you to show me the kind of person you are. And yes, like everybody else, prejudice will dwell in my brain. I will try my best to kind of pat it down and make sure and try and treat people with a basic level of respect and move on. That's all I could do. That's all I could do. And if all of us aim to do that, then that's the only way we could deal with the trauma of the past. We can't, what we're trying to do now, what a lot of these people who pretend they're trying to solve a problem of racism, what they're really trying to do now is they're trying to turn the tables. They're trying to solve racism with racism.
Yeah.
Makes zero sense, right? They're trying to say, well, you took advantage of me in the past, so now you have to let me take advantage of you till I get up to your level. But first of all, who's going to determine when is okay? All right, so we even now, let me stop. Because neither side is going to, when they're in the ascendancy, they're not going to stop. You know what I'm saying? When are we going to all convene a meeting and say, all right, as black people, we have done enough reverse racism and we've got it at equal footing now, so let's stop and let's live in harmony. No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works.
When
you don't like racism, don't be racist. End of story.
Right.
No, don't like racism, but I'll be racist because you were racist to my grandfather. No. The point is, nobody didn't do you nothing, right? Nobody didn't enslave you. So don't take no feelings for your grandfather, or recognize, appreciate your grandfather's struggle and say, all right, that was bullshit, but from now on, I'm not doing that.
Which, that is a topic, but we were jumping into that just now. I forget that point, but so let me jump into this one quick. I was telling somebody the other day, I say, for me, once again, I could be wrong, but this is me. I think I kind of appreciate what my ancestors, my African ancestors, went through for me, right? It was shitty. It was evil, horrendous, however the case may be. But just like the people who believe in Jesus Christ, how he had to go through the pain and be nailed to the cross for their salvation. I am thankful for what my African ancestors went through for my salvation. I prefer to be on this side of the world, right? Than if I was on that side of the world. I mean, we never know how things would have turned out, right?
You mean if Africans were left alone?
If Africans were left alone and it wasn't colonized.
Well, I mean, it certainly wouldn't be as romanticized as some people believe, because some people wanted to believe that Africans were all living in peace and harmony, and then the white man came, and prior to that there was no war, everybody was just cooperating and living in wonderful harmony. But that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, because there were billions. Well, there are a lot of different tribes.
Well, to some extent, the the formation of kind of warring tribes was aided by the Europeans, by the colonization efforts and the divisiveness that Europeans brought to Africa. So, but they were still slaves, right? There were people who were enslaved by people who looked just like them, right? And there was also conflict. Conflict didn't only come with the white man.
But this is what I'm saying. And once you have different tribes,
once you have people, you have conflict.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
And then once you have different tribes, eventually you go cross me with something, and I go cross you with something, and we go start the battle, right?
Yeah.
So for me, and I say, listen, I'm here now. I'm on this side of the world. This is what it is, and it's time for me to make the best of what I have in front of me. There are children right now in Africa who are starving.
I know in Trinidad.
Very few, much less.
Percentage-wise, right?
Yeah.
Well, it depends on what part of Africa you're talking about. Because if you're talking about South Africa,
probably not South Africa.
Yeah,
But
if you're talking about the DRC, then that's a different story.
Right?
The Sudan or something like that, there might be, yes.
Right? So, and for me, listen, ancestors, thanks. I here now. I come in to make the best of it. I don't have time to look back and say, oh God, boy, look what it do we and all the tie up thing and nah, boy, because and I always tell people this, well, if you really resent what went on, drop Christianity, right? Which you may not have come across. If
the Ethiopian Orthodox would challenge that, but you could drop the European version of Christianity.
Right? And pick up yourself and go back. Africa, if you think things would have been better there.
Well, I mean, to be fair, and you see the people who make those moves, I hats off, respect to you. If you say that this is well, I mean, not really Trinidad, but they say that mostly about Western, the developed nation, the first world. That's the white man's land. So, well, not by birth, or by right, but the white man has colonized and taken over that. And you live in the white man's land. If you're fed up living in the white man's land and you're fed up live and face all these microaggressions and all these racist attacks every day, then get up and go somewhere where you would feel more at home. And in whatever your complaint is, solve it by yourself. Stop begging the same people that you say are Satan incarnate to help you. Because you are the one telling me they're Satan incarnate. I'm not arguing with you at all. Okay, they're Satan incarnate. So why are you begging Satan to give you a blie?
To like you. And
get up and get out of Satan's hand.
You know, Akon is get relics.
He's get licks?
I mean, nah, Akon is get relics, boy. By American blacks, though.
Serious?
Yeah, because the other day
I just see him getting like nothing but praise on social media.
You mean when he do the nice things what
he's trying to build in Africa.
No. We've been talking about that because he makes statements sometimes that just get people real mad now way. Right. Like if you Google her now, like the other day he make a statement and he's like, yo, we across in Africa.
It's Senegalian.
Yeah. Right? We don't study slavery again, you know.
How do Senegalese really feel about slavery and what happened? Because, there are a lot of very foul people involved in the slave trade. There was, of course, Europeans, Jews and whites were involved, but, Africans were involved in it as well. They were selling off their enemies, the enemy tribes and making their money and so forth. Like how was slavery really looked at out there?
Well, in Senegal, we've kind of overcome the thought of slavery. We don't even think about it. The only time we think about it, honestly, is when we're doing tours at Goda Island. Outside of that, people have lived and moved and way beyond the slavery concept and idea and mind state.
Yeah, we press on. We press in.
We don't study that again.
Yeah, we press
people
in.
are like, what? He's trying to tell people to forget slavery. That's not what he said. He's just like, yo, listen, if we are across here, we ain't have time to study that.
We press in.
Right? Is that we're moving forward. And just the other day, he make a next statement and they get real vexed with him again. And I was like,
because you know why, Naldo? Do you know why? And this is what I was trying to tell you before. They don't want to solve the problem. They don't actually want to solve the problem because the existence of the problem gives them validation. Either it gives them, for the race hustlers, they get money, they get monetary rewards, and for the rest of them, it gives them some sort of emotional stuff. It's almost like, you know how some people complain to you all the time, and no matter, and they come to you with a problem. Boy, I can't get a work, boy. All right, hey, so you could try this. Nah, but I can't try that because you could try this. Nah, but and you, after a while, you realize, wait, you don't want to find a work. You just want to keep complaining about the fact that you don't have a work, right? So no matter what I tell you, you don't ever adopt any of these suggestions. You're never going to adopt these suggestions because really and truly, if you get a work, you have nothing to complain about anymore. And that is what you really want. You want something to complain. Because Akon is simply saying, yo, okay, I'm not doubting you. All of the stress and the trauma you're dealing with over there, yes, I get it. So get up and get out.
Because he said if you all bring your skill and talent and whatnot across here could be much better than where you all are. He have said that.
Africa is the only place in the world where black people can go and build Fortune 500 companies from scratch within 5 years. Go back to Africa. Okay. Whatever you're doing here, do it there.
They don't want to. And they don't want to because they love the problem. It gives them a sense of validation. It gives them something to talk about right through and to post about and get likes and get applause and get, and to some extent, I have to respect the people who make it work for them monetarily. So, except the politicians, and I just don't have respect for jackass politicians. But you see, if you turn it into a media career or wherever you make your name and making money and selling books by pushing victimhood, you're killing your people. Know that you're selling your soul because you're killing your people.
Would you? A lot of countries coming out of the new variant, coming out after the new variant in South Africa. Or where it came from? Botswana. It really came from.
Botswana is where they say the first case emanated from, but they're still calling South Africa the epicenter.
Right. Yeah. A lot of places, a lot of countries banned flights from there, and a couple other African countries very quickly. In my estimation, I find it was a bit premature. I think, and I feel like it only because it was African countries, they were willing to do it so quickly. I think it had other variants from other countries. And to me, they didn't move at such haste to ban.
True. I'm trying to remember what happened with Delta, because I remember with Delta there was such a back and forth between which strain was more dangerous. The Alpha had come out from the UK, and the Delta was wreaking havoc in India, or was beginning to wreak havoc in India. And they weren't certain which one. So there was a lot of actually the UK was criticized for having a lot of travel from India to the UK. But because the ties between those countries are, economic ties between those countries are extreme, right? So the UK would have felt a how trying to place a travel ban on Indians because the backlash from the Indian government would have been strong and it would have caused some economic problems. So they would have been hesitant. But at that point in time, there was a lot of back and forth as to which one was more dangerous. So I think what happened in that instance, it was just the data was so scrappy that by the time people realized what Delta was, it had already spread.
But the thing is, as you say, if you could remember how long they took to
the US didn't, from the time Delta proved itself to be a more transmissible strain and a variant of concern, the US placed restrictions on the UK and many parts. I think those restrictions still in place, I should have checked that before I came on. But I think the restrictions on the UK, Schengen area, anywhere where Delta was running rampant, Brazil, some other parts of South America, once they became known that it was a variant of concern because it could have rapid spread.
How long they took to check that? Because
I think it was because Alpha and Delta were competing at the point in time. It took a while for them to really determine which one was the more dangerous one, the one that you needed to put a handle on. And I think that's what made it kind of scrappy. And what they would say now is, listen, we made the mistake with Delta, which ended up being a very it's becoming the dominant strain now because it's so easily transmissible. It's so easily transmitted. Sorry, from person to person, and it's becoming the dominant strain. It's out competing the others. This Omicron. Remember, the first concerns they had was that it was easily transmissible in the first place. Those were the reports that were coming out from Southern Africa at the time. So it's like, nah, fuck that. I'm not going through that again. I'm not letting this thing run amok before we put things in place. So
all right, where's your perspective on Trinidad looking to make that call against the African countries? Because the reason I ask that, because let's be real, we still have kind of open borders. Well, kind of, as I say, kind of open borders.
No, we have open borders.
Yeah. But I mean, of course, you have to have your PCR test and you fully be vaccinated and whatnot.
But that's everybody,
right?
Well, almost everybody.
Yeah. For plenty of other countries that have way more COVID than South Africa or some of those African countries.
What they would say is that they don't want Omicron to cause havoc on an already unbearable situation, or not unbearable, but because we're bearing it, but it's an already dangerous situation. So I think they would institute travel restrictions on anywhere where Omicron is showing community spread. I think if they make that decision, that's what they would do here, and they should. When I say they should, if they're going to take that decision, then they should take the decision anywhere that Omicron is showing community spread. We going to.
But my thing is, why not do the same thing for countries that Delta has community spread or other?
Well, because Delta already here, and they would also. Do we have any travel restrictions? Do we have country targeted travel restrictions right now?
I only know about the African countries. Correct me if I'm wrong.
So we don't have any travel restrictions here.
No, not to mine. I know we were blacklisted at a point with England. And now that has opened back up. Now we're hearing some people kind of, saying
Caribbean. Are there Caribbean countries where we have issues going?
Not to my knowledge. I know people who are traveling to Caribbean countries and.
No, I would think that you'd be able to, but it would probably, if you have some kind of firmer restrictions where they put you under some special screening, or you could only go to, because I know some places allowing tourists to enter, but you have to stay in a particular zone.
Okay.
So, like, if you're from a certain country, you could go anywhere, but if you're from countries where they feel COVID is an issue, then you could only stay in these bubbles, like these tourist bubbles that they set up.
So yeah, that's in the unsafe zone.
Right, yeah. I guess that's how they would frame it. But they would say Delta is already here. So, and there's already community spread of Delta here. What they would try to say is let's keep this other strain away for as long as possible. You can't prevent it from. No, I'm not saying I agree yet. I'm just saying that the rationale they would propose is that we are already experiencing a battle here with Delta, and we allow Delta to run rampant before anybody kind of recognize what it was and clamp down. So we don't want that happen with Omicron. So they would put those. Obviously, the fact that you don't have a huge trade relationship with any of those African countries would make it easy to do it. If you're talking about countries, and I don't think it has to necessarily do with race as much as people would imply. I think it more has to do with countries being dependent on you. So as I say, look at with India and England. England was under real pressure. The UK was under real pressure to ban citizens or ban flights from India, people coming from India. But what prevented them from doing it wasn't because they like Indian people more than they like black people or white people. It's because the two countries have huge economic ties, and if you have poor diplomatic relations between the two countries, it could have serious ramifications on other things. And you just don't want that war. You understand what I'm saying? And so countries would be hesitant based on that, not necessarily, well, them people black, so ban them from coming.
And all right, I feel, and I guess what you say makes sense, because places like, let's just say, the US or England or whatever the case may be, you could see it as we don't want to upset them, but we
Right,
don't mind.
right,
We don't mind
right.
upsetting
Exactly.
African countries because
Yeah, or anywhere we don't have a huge relationship with. We don't have a very strong. If it was from Peru, I don't think you'll have a problem putting Peru on a travel ban because we don't have great. I'm not saying we don't have any relationship at all, but what I'm saying is the two countries the economies aren't very dependent on each other. So if you upset Peruvian people, it's not that big a deal. But if you're looking at bigger nations who'll be like, whoa, you don't want people from here come? Well, all right, well then, if you do that with the UK, well, maybe we should take you all off the visa waiver list. How about that? How about all you need a visa to travel to the UK? Yeah, so that kind of thing I think plays a much bigger role in the decisions when it comes to banning people from particular countries.
No, definitely. I would like to see how it goes now because the data is coming out. The studies are showing that what is Omicron? I'm hearing so many different names.
It's just Omicron.
Because the thing is, you're hearing, I guess different people from different countries pronounce it differently, right?
No, but there's no NS, so anybody with Omicron, that's not yet. Yeah.
So Omicron, right?
Yeah, Omicron, yeah.
So the thing is...
Talking about flights.
yeah. Signally played. But you're seeing now that it is not as harmful or deadly as Delta and even
the original strain.
Right.
The Alpha and the original strain is not the same thing.
Right. Then, so you're seeing that because, like, for instance, headlines again, once again, while, children in the hospital as a result. When the person who was doing who handling the situation with the children in whatever province of South Africa was saying, they'll know the children real good, they're real normal, we just monitoring it because this is new. We are keeping the children in the hospital, they are fine. But we just want to monitor them to see how they treat them with it. They're not dying. They don't need any sort of.
And from what I was hearing as well is that some of them were incidental in the sense that the COVID wasn't the reason they were in the hospital.
So they say 76% of the people who are currently in the hospital with this variant is because they went in the hospital. Some got in car accidents. Right. Some had other issues, and because it's what you call it, the process now to be tested before you go into the hospital is when they test them real, but wait, you are COVID. And these people like normal, like, I have COVID, like, serious?
No, but I think it was specifically speaking about the children as well.
Right.
The children were, they weren't admitted for COVID necessarily. Well, not all, but I think there was a percent, I heard from somewhere, I can't remember where, that there was a percentage of them, a significant percentage of them for whom the COVID status was incidental. The COVID diagnosis was incidental to something else they were in the hospital for, but somehow that turned into Omicron affects the children and the elderly.
And
that's what I saw a headline of our CMO here saying.
Yeah, and the statistics is less than 10% of these people who have gotten the disease. Yeah, it's less than 10%. I just trying to remember, it was about 7% or something. So they were children, right? But obviously, people trying to make it seem like it's way more than what it is. My thing is, now as the data is unfolding,
well, you see, that's the next thing, eh? The war over what the data is, because you saying that, but just before I came here, I was looking at a news report, and they were saying something about evidence of increased virulence. Now, I don't know what they're using, because everybody looking to sell, they want to sell a story. For the media, they want to sell fear, they want to sell sensationalism. So they will look for wherever study, wherever evidence that could, somebody might be speculating that it looking like, and they go just take that and run with it. So you saying, the evidence saying this, but it depends on who you're getting the evidence from.
Well,
because in this day and age, dog, it seems like people living in alternate universes. You hearing one thing from from where whoever you just follow, and then the next set of people in a completely different story. So but I did see reports similar to what you were talking about, that it's not necessarily something that seems to be causing a reason for any concern, but
Well, they say they're still monitoring. They say so far it's okay. They say within the next, they were saying 6 days. I would say give them 2 weeks. They would have a better idea. I say give them 2 weeks. So my thing is, if in 2 weeks' time, the professionals, the scientists and the doctors and the whoever, whichever specialist it takes, come and say, listen, it ain't that bad. Are we going to see most of these restrictions lifted from these countries?
yeah, I think once the narrative takes over that is the case, I think that will never happen though.
It's serious.
When I say I don't think the restrictions will never go away, but I think it will take a real long time for anybody to just calm down about this thing. I think it will take a real long time before anybody feels that's okay to say it's not a big deal. It'll be a long time before somebody will say that. Everybody will hedge their bets because nobody wants to be responsible for saying, don't study it now, boy, and then it blows up into something huge. I think it will be a long time. You'll probably have to see weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks of evidence that is not a big deal in order for anybody to throw up their hands and say, no, all right, false alarm, everybody go ahead with life.
Because, I mean, some people are even saying that this could be the way out. I don't know if you have
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, if it's something that if the virus has now evolved into something that's mild and akin to the common cold, then obviously we should want it to spread because now, okay, this is what you want everybody to get infected with, and let it be something that we could all deal with. And you have your vaccines and your antiviral drugs for the extreme cases, for people who are at risk or. And people who might end up sick anyway. You have those things, and if you have a harmless strain or a relatively harmless strain, and we have vaccines and antivirals, I don't see. But I'm not an expert, of course, but I don't see how we could have.
So then we might have to import some people from South Africa and put them to
Japan. What went on in Japan? You have to find out what happened in Japan. Why has the virus disappeared in Japan? Bring some Japanese people here and maybe they had to spread wherever they had over there and I don't know, but it just what happened in Japan, dog? Like
But I was watching a video with same Dr. Campbell, Dr. John Campbell, and what he was saying, well, obviously he is alluding to the medication which will remain unnamed, right?
Yes.
Now, this is the date here when ivermectin was allowed as a treatment in Japan, the 13th of August. Now, if you Google this, if you Google ivermectin Japan, you'll get at the first 30 or 40 or 50 entrances will be saying that Japan has not approved ivermectin as an official treatment for COVID-19. And that's true, it hasn't. But I'm going to show you why I've got this date on here now. That one there's the 13th of August, ivermectin allowed as a treatment in Japan. So that was the 13th there, that day there. So 13. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 days. And then the cases started to completely plummet off down to where we are now in Japan. So one of those interesting coincidences. Now, Japan is a very disciplined nation, and mask wearing was already very much part of their culture. So ingrained pre-pandemic mask wearing to prevent flu and other respiratory infections. So people at the moment all over Japan are still wearing masks. They are still social distancing. They are still exercising discipline.
And and he was also saying there is a particular gene in the DNA of Japanese people that helps them combat the virus.
Another interesting possibility is not related to the genetics of the virus, but related to the genetics of the Japanese themselves. Now, the Japanese have been, there hasn't been a lot of genetic interbreeding in Japan for a long, long time, probably a few thousand years. So people in Japan might have particular genetic variations that people in other parts of the world don't have, and indeed this seems to be the case. So more people in Asia, particularly in Japan, have a defense enzyme called ApoBEC3A. So this is a defense enzyme. So this is an enzyme that people have that helps them to defend against viruses. So whereas this one was made by the virus, this one is made by the people. Now this, if you're lucky enough to have this defense enzyme here, that will attack RNA viruses, and of course COVID-19 is an RNA virus.
You didn't see that video?
That's proven or that's speculation?
Well, no, he was saying he went into this thing with the A so and the thing so and the 3 so and the 6 and thing and right. You find that in most Japanese people, and because Japanese people apparently don't really breed outside of the
they do interbreed, yes.
Yeah. He said, so that gene kind of stay heavy there amongst them. And so
but this was him speculating, or this he was talking. He was like,
well, you're saying that's possibly why, based on and he break down the how the virus is constructed and the construction of this gene in these people and blah blah blah, blah. And yeah, so possibly that. So I mean, he didn't throw out the medication which will remain unnamed, right?
Yeah.
But he's saying so possibly that and that gene kind of help.
Well, whatever it is, we need to investigate it. People need to be trying to find out.
Well, he was saying that it could be possible that it have certain genes and certain different ethnicities that could help or fight off certain things, and that could probably be receiving more harm from the virus because they may be lacking certain genes and whatnot. So you see, that's the kind of research people need to be doing right now.
Well, yeah, I think darker skinned people tend to be doing worse with the virus, which would, well, then again, yes, darker skinned people would find it more difficult to retain or absorb vitamin D, and they've been saying that vitamin D shortfalls in vitamin D levels have had some deleterious effects and so on. So it may be all of that, but.
So they're saying protesters who were detained during Tuesday's pushback protest. Pushback protest, that could be a carnival thing. Anyway, pushback protest in which a number of people gathered to speak out against forced vaccinations, safe zones, and restrictions in the public health ordinance. Right? So that's what they were pushing back against. In my opinion, that's a real weird time to do that.
No, it wasn't. But see why you say.
I think when we have the worst set of numbers, I think because here, where's the solution? I do have a solution, but what is the solution?
And this is why I think that happened because a lot of people got the same fear you got after the Prime Minister's address. They saw what he did as him laying the grounds for when these mandates come. Right. And he's like, nah, let me know one time. We're not having that. And I think that's why they named it a pushback protest. Because I think when they got that same impression. Now, it's not what I got, but I think they got that same impression from the address. And it's like, hey, he talking that talk. Let him know one time that that's not what's going on. We're not going through that. And they aren't trying to find a solution to the COVID situation. They're simply saying, hey, stop at people's right to bodily autonomy. You will not force me to inject nothing in myself. Right? Now, you could say the safe zones issue. You could say, all right, maybe that might be a little bit... People might view that as irresponsible or whatever. But the general idea was, hey, don't get an idea in your head that you could force me to take nothing.
All right. No, so my thing is, all right, I am one who I would say I would support mandating vaccines if the government is willing to stand liabilities, whatever the liability may be. And
no,
this is me. This is my take on it, right? You want to mandate vaccines? Cool. If I am to die as a result of taking the vaccine,
You'll never be able to prove that.
well,
You'll never be able to prove that. There will always be some sort of, on the balance of evidence, we can't say. That's why it's so hard to sue pharmaceutical companies on a general basis, and worse yet when it comes to harms caused by vaccines, because it's very, very difficult to prove that on the balance of probabilities, it was the vaccine, but for the vaccine, you would have died. That's not almost impossible. It was very, very difficult to prove. So,
would you say it's impossible to prove if you have biased doctors or biased?
no, it's impossible to prove in any legal case. That those are very difficult. And it'll be even worse because in this instance, because nobody wants to open up themselves to liability and nobody wants to cast any doubt on the vaccines at all or anything like that. Which is why every time people say, "Oh, what they feel uncomfortable with is the fact that the vaccine companies have been given indemnity, and even if they didn't get them indemnity, you know how hard it would have been for you to prove that a vaccine harm you." You wasn't getting nothing in court anyway. You understand what I'm saying? Look at how it happens now, right? Where there's speculation about people, about what the vaccine, about somebody having taken the vaccine and suffering some serious effects. If here how the authorities just talk about it now, well, listen, we don't have evidence linking. You know how that is to prove? That you didn't have some, and even if you could prove it, now you have to prove that that it was due to negligence on the part of the pharmaceutical company, not just that you had some special reaction in your body.
But that's what I'm saying. I'm pushing the fight that way now. I'm pushing the fight in terms of we had to come to that arrangement within the government and the pharmaceutical company. That is between the government and the pharmaceutical company. That's two of them. But between me and the government, because you mandated me to take it, right? Here what's going on. If I was good, my doctors could prove I was good before you make me take it, and
that's real difficult to prove. That whatever you say happened to you after was caused by the vaccine. That'd be real difficult to prove. So I am not comforted by any of that. And I don't believe that the mandate should exist, period, because I don't think anybody should be forced to take any sort of medical procedure, period. Don't people say there are vaccine mandates in place already? So you can't send your children to school without them having been vaccinated in particular ways. That's true, but I don't agree with that either. You understand? So I don't think that there's anything could give the government cause to.
And well, the one in schools that's not really a mandate.
Well, it's in a sense it's a mandate because you have no access to public schooling.
But they could homeschool a child, not vaccinate them and homeschool a child.
Right, yes, but
and they could be able to go into any store, any
right. Yeah. But what I'm saying is there is a vaccine mandate of sorts in place, right? Already. So, but I'm not necessarily in agreement with that either. No, you might say, but you conformed to it. Okay, true, because. And I'll be honest and all, maybe I didn't give enough thought to vaccines before. Maybe I didn't give enough thought to the fact that, hey, this could be harmful. You know, I mean, there might be harms associated with it. I'm not saying there are, but the point is, yes, I would have taken it for granted before, hey, a vaccine. And it's only now because this is, in the air that now you're kind of forced to think about whether this is right, wrong, indifferent. But there are vaccine mandates in place already, but I don't necessarily agree with them fundamentally. But in the case of this particular one especially, this is an experiment. This is not something that has gone through
enough.
Has stood the test of time or has been studied for a long enough period of time for us to be certain that nothing can happen to people in a long period of time. And so it's even worse now that you're seeking to mandate that. But I don't think that there is. I know they'll find a way if they want to. But what I'm saying,
but as you say, on point, because now the thing is, if you say it's very difficult to prove, even right as we were talking about before, if they were to compensate you, then no matter how long you give them, they could always bullshit it the same way.
Exactly. No matter how long, and that's my thing, because they are going to tell you whatever they want to tell you now for you to take it, because they think this is the only way out, and so they want you to take it. 10 years from now, where you start to say that, hey, we see an increase thing, instances of this, maybe it's due to the by that time, so many different things could have happened. Who knows who take this vaccine or who take that vaccine, or there are other changes, things you're eating, things you're drinking, less exercise, that's whatever. So nobody knows what could be, by in 10 years' time, they could deny that anything you feeling now is and to be fair to them, it's hard to prove. It is hard to prove because it did not do a controlled study, which is what you would normally have done and followed somebody for 5 years and so on and so forth, and have a control group and a control group that got a placebo, and a control group that got the vaccine, and you saw what would have been the effects. But if you don't have that, who knows? Because there are some people who are saying, listen, the reason why they want the largest amount of people to take this as possible is that you don't have a control group. You have nobody to compare it to.
Right.
You can't say, well, all right, 10% of the population was, 20% of the population was vaccinated. The other 80% wasn't. But in the 20%, we see an increase this. So therefore, we know it was caused by X or Y or Z. No, you don't have that. If 90% of the people take, or 95%, you don't have a
so many different things could happen
that you don't have a grounds to say that anything was caused by. And again, the YouTube gods will already have frowned upon us for saying anything negative about vaccines. But I am not saying, I'll be clear, I'm not saying that these vaccines cause harm or that I feel that they cause harm. But I'm simply saying that we don't know. And I wouldn't be comforted by the fact that anybody's willing to stand liability, because if what it is a 10% increase in heart attack risk, who am I going to prove that the heart attack I get 20 years from now, I would not have gotten it if I didn't get the vaccine? You know what I mean? So that is not something that I feel very strongly against the idea of mandating anybody to ingest anything into their bodies. I think that's, I can't see how people could feel comfortable doing that, boy.
Last topic before we close off. Talking about things that killing people here, we have some people trying to kill prison officers in Trinidad and Tobago. And I sent you a video. You saw the video I sent you?
Yeah.
With them.
But somebody commented, and I also believe that is an old video.
All right.
Yeah.
But it had one release pretty recently with a guy with his hand broken.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah, and he was saying, look what they do, man. Ting.
Well, they have lawyers who file in cases, who filed pre-action protocol letters based on claims that they've been victimized in the recent past.
Right?
Since this thing has started.
Right, yeah. So we haven't those situations and whatever now. It is said that they had planned on killing 13 prison officers by Christmas.
So the Prison Officers Association says.
Right. So the police, the prison
POA,
right,
Prison Officers
Association, right? Two have been murdered, yeah. Two have been murdered, one shot at. Yeah, boy.
And I mean, as in the recent past, we've had prison officers before.
Right, but I mean, since they're hearing about all this bacchanal, in a very short space of time, all this happening. Now, my thing is, and I've been saying this for years, if these shots are being called from within the jail, clearly that's a problem with other prison officers. Because these people clearly have access to phones, they have access to internet, they have access to all different kind of things.
Well, in this instance, the Prison Officers Association themselves said that the personal information of the officers was passed on to the prisoners by a senior prison officer.
Right.
And so they seem to know who the senior prison officer is.
Right. So my thing is...
So I say that to say it's not necessarily wild speculation.
Well, right.
That prison officers involved in one way or another.
Well, but the thing is, it couldn't even be speculation before. Because how does get any stuff? You understand what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, but I mean, the prison officers would say there are all ways and means of bypassing the system, but they are now admitting that prison officers. So it's not speculation.
Before they would have still been bullshit. Right? Apparently, some prisoner called a radio station recently and was saying that they charge them $3,000 to bring in a phone, and then they will send an next officer to take back the phone and then sell them back the phone and all kind of craziness. I don't know how much truth it is to that. But my thing is, and I'm not condoning violence in any way, but if I knew, if I was a prison officer and I knew another prison officer who was aiding in them being able to attack me or my fellow co-workers, I think I'd just deal with the prison officer.
Well, I would suspect they can't because the prison officer
He's God?
is of such a rank that is not even...
I'm not talking about deal with him through...
No, I'm not talking about that either. I know you're not talking about that. But when I say rank, I don't mean of rank in the prison service. Because if they're dealing with the high risk of inmates, if they're good with the high risk inmates and they're feeding the high risk inmates information and the high risk inmates are able to pull off the work outside, what will happen to you when you deal with that prison officer?
But the thing is, at least if they have the information of 13 of us, well, we'll leave that person alive to give him the information in the next 100 of us.
Well, you deal with it in whatever way you have to do. But the reason why, if you're asking why they might be, because to hear them say we know that they got it from a senior, so my thing is, so where the next step, right? Well, that senior prison officer has been suspended. No, but I could understand why there's apprehension. It's not easy to deal with because if he and the high risk inmate's good, he is not a soft target.
Nah.
Like the ones who get the prison officer association saying the ones who get killed getting targeted because they're soft targets. Well, the 1/1s who helping them ain't soft targets either.
Nah, well, I would have prefer go down swinging and take the battle there.
Or you just take yourself away. Do what you could do to not end up in them people crosshairs. That's probably the way most of them would deal with it. Put a head down and look the next way.
But you see the problem, and that's the problem. So now you're saying they have to go to work and basically not do their job. If you understand what I'm saying, you see certain things that you understand what I'm saying, and you just had to say, well, boy, I had to turn.
Well, is that or go after a gringo?
I was going after the gringo, because you see the thing is, those people, I'm not saying everybody in there bad, right? But those people who are willing to do bad and willing to do evil, they could switch on it anytime, any day, even if you leave them now. You understand what I'm saying? So one might spit on you or something, spit, because they just do that. I sure you know that, right? might spit in your face and you might be able to take it a daddy, so it's a slap, and that's it. Or because
you mean the inmate?
Yeah, the inmate might spit in your face.
Yeah, but that people has worked their whole career in the prison service. I have 3 prison service brethren, right? One who, I don't know if it's called them special force, but the ones who just get called in to deal with the real, the troublesome ones, right? He looking to retire, I want to say in 3-4 years. Entire career in there. Normal. Following the ropes.
But you don't think now,
you
don't think now the tension a bit higher than before?
I think everybody in there knows the rules, and it's the ones who not falling in line that ending up in the situation that they ended up in. That's just my opinion. I have no special. Let me say this one thing. I don't know special insight into the situation, but I simply feel that what is happening now, because we had a time when this was an issue before. It's not now alone. I mean, they didn't get to three of them in 1 week, but they got to several of them over the course of years. You understand? And there's always been a situation where there's tension between the inmates and you know what I mean. I have one of the people I was talking about, a friend of mine, he was shot. I'll leave it at that, right? So this has always been happening, but when you're in there, you know how to handle yourself, and the ones who don't handle yourself, I suspect that the ones who ended up in these situations. Yeah, but the point I'm making is, if you were there, I don't think the first option would have come to your head would be to deal with the situation. It would be, hey, hear this now. Either I busting out of here, or I come in, I do my I put on my head and I learn the ropes, and you go your way, and you retire, and you get your pension, and you go watch your business.
I don't know.
I don't think you'll go in there and play hero and no.
I would probably have to leave the job.
Well,
Because-
either that or yeah.
Yeah, because I am. If I go to do a job and I'm not going to do the job to suit the or to bend to suit the people I supposed to be correcting or keeping in order, that's not me. I mean,
Well.
I mean that's probably why I'm not working in TTT today, because I was not willing to accept the things the way they were. And I wanted better, and I realized things weren't getting better. So,
right, yeah.
I'll you know.
But that was I think that it would either you would bust out or you would put on it, but it wouldn't be that kind of situation where, boy, let me deal with Tina, boy. Brett. I don't think that's how it would have gone.
No, but the thing is, but we can't want that for ourselves as a country. There is not.
I didn't say so. I didn't say that's the way it should be, you know. I didn't say that's the way it should be, but you started by asking, how could the prison officers operate in that situation? And I think it's because they know how to operate. They know how to, because I could tell you one thing, especially from the one who is close to retirement now. He has told me on numerous occasions, boss, inside there, you had to know when to play hero and you had to know when to be calm. He, as I say, he's an enforcer. So he's one of them you would think should have the most fear, because he used to tell me about time he deal with inmates physically, because he like thing too. He like strong man thing. He like fight. So he would tell us about that, but he's also telling, we gotta know how to move, and I think that's how it runs in there. Is that you gotta know how to move, and when you know how to move, you keep away from them thing, but. Unfortunately, some people ending up in the crosshairs. Who knows what they're doing? I don't know what they're doing.
Right.
I don't know why maybe they're really being targeted because they're soft targets. But I think we kind of might be oversimplifying it to think that, well, once we know who the man is who helping them, we could just deal with he. I think I think that might be an oversimplification of this scenario. Why think? Go ahead.
Because it's as I say, if everybody continue going in, realizing how it is, put on the head, I think it will never get better.
No,
and it could only get worse, because you were saying that's how it always was, but I think it's getting worse, and I think it has gotten worse over some time. And if we continue putting our head and knowing the order, it will just continue to get much worse.
And that's what I was telling you. What I think the real issue here is tackling organized crime, because you're saying again worse. I think that's why it's getting worse, because organized crime in general in this country has just been getting worse and worse and worse, and it's organized crime that is really the issue here, you know, because prisoners and turnkey would have been having war since they built the prison, right? That is a situation that is you know is tailor made for conflict. You know what I mean? There wouldn't be. It wouldn't. You're locking up some of the most, some of the biggest miscreants, and you're putting them to be kept in order by some people who the only difference between them and them who behind the bars is they didn't get catch yet. You know what I mean? So that's a situation for danger. That's ripe for danger. But it is getting worse now because organized crime in this country is getting worse. So the ability of people behind bars to call shot outside and organize this situation and have people pay to do this and that and the other, although they're behind bars and many of them only don't have no legitimate source of income in the first place, but they could call shot while inside there and pay good money for them for those shots to be executed. Organized crime is what is getting worse in this country, and because we're not nipping that in the bud. I remember I've told people forever. I remember there was a point in time when I was on the radio and something had happened with El Chapo, and I was reading the story out, and somebody called and said, because in the story they were recounting some other time that the compound came under siege by the police, and they launched they put 50 caliber guns on the roof of the compound, and it was tearing through police tanks. And so the person calling, but what is going on? That is madness. So them people, they shoot at the I feel they read something wrong there. No, Brett. That's what when they go for those kinds of individuals there, men don't throw the cocaine in the toilet and flush it. They arm up and put on Teflon vests and back at the police. They don't run and hide. You know what I mean? They go to war with the police. You understand?
Till ministers and
Mayors
have to reason with them.
In some cities in Mexico, the mayor, people running for the mayor's office, there's be affiliated with a gang. There's this gang candidate and that gang candidate. You understand what I'm saying? That's what happens when you allow organized crime to just run amok. You have you have people who are so big, they end up like Doodles in Jamaica. You understand what I'm saying? So we head in for that because we feel this thing is kicks. And instead of us addressing the issue, we getting caught up in Balize and Rising Sun argument while this situation just getting worse. So that way you're seeing there happening, that would never done, because once organized crime making money, they will always be able to buy favors from turnkeys. They will always be able to call shots from behind bars, and they'll always be able to reach wherever they want to reach them because their arms long. So,
and the thing is, if what Gary Griffith was saying many years now, since he was the Minister of National Security, and then said again when he was the Commissioner of Police, if government officials helping these gang leaders by giving them contracts or whatever the case may be,
community leaders,
right? Then it come like we, the taxpayers, we funding crime.
Yeah, we funding it, and then we funding the fight against it. So we giving is almost like the taxpayers arming the bandits to shoot at the police. And to shoot at we.
And then buying the guns the police to shoot back.
Right.
So wow.
It's a crazy situation. So that is what we had to address. Before that, you could do whatever you want. They will always have, once the money is there, they will always be able to find a turnkey who will help them. And they will always be able to inject fear in the turnkey because...
Yeah. So,
Well, I mean, it's sad to say that this is the kind of life that... This is what it's come to here, and this is the kind of things we see on a regular basis. Because, I mean, it's not the first time this has happened. Somebody gets taken out in front of the child. People shoot at people lying on in bed with a child.
And hit the child sometimes.
Yeah, So, it is sad. But in terms of what happening out there, as I say, it's not a surprise to me. It's not a surprise to me.
I understand, but I think probably seeing it is what obviously connected.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I don't watch the videos, right? So you asked me first. I don't want to see it. There are things I've seen in my life that I wish I never saw. And so this new age of everybody fucking sending you a recording, or everybody you get bounced down, or everybody you get shoot, or everybody... Why do they want them images painted in your brain? But I don't understand why people... So once I know a video exists, I don't want to see it. So I will see the conversation in the chat. I don't want to see that video. And I just carry on. But I read what happened in the video. And I could just imagine, dog. It reminded me of remember the video, the man who got knocked down on the bus route. And the bus route by... after the crazy day in Barataria, and the woman, like as she saw the man get clean up in front, she just run.
Not why you
didn't see that one? It was a police jeep.
Okay.
And the video, the man was in the road so long, I still don't understand how they clean up the man like that. But they lick him down, and she was standing up by the side of the road going to cross, and as she see him get licked down, she just like, there was no audio in the video, but you could see like she went, oh God, and just started to run. Like she just lost it at that point in time. So I can imagine if it was a child seeing that happen to the parent. Jesus Lord,
But once
that
again,
kind of trauma.
As I agree in terms of not being too surprised. It's unfortunate though, but I would always there's the time when I think around by Kumuto or somewhere there, Wallerfield, they shot a guy and his girlfriend, the pregnant girlfriend.
Yeah.
And him, but oh God, how you gonna do that? And I remember telling people, it was right now one of the most popular songs on radio it's a man saying empty a clip in your girlfriend
Yeah.
mouth, or
Mouth,
whatever,
yeah.
right?
Mouth,
Yeah. Yeah.
You say mouth funny, but it's mouth is saying, yeah.
Right? And I was like, so what do you expect, boy? What do you expect?
Yeah. And I mean,
And I'm pretty sure there are songs right now, which that is a whole different topic, but there are songs right now that I would say, I will shoot in front of your chair or shoot in front.
yeah. And I don't care where I see you and I don't care who with you. Yeah, that's a common thing, especially in rap music now. Probably in dancehall too, but especially in rap music. Chicago drill, that is the thing. That's like, yeah, I don't care where I see you and I don't care who with you sending you home. So, yeah, it is sad, and you know, it's I guess the only thing you can be thankful for in this instance is that they didn't hit the child.
Right.
You know, because I remember, I don't know if you remember, this happened a few years ago in Pinto, where they went in the wrong panyard.
Right, I remember that, yeah.
And
spray up the pan.
spray up the place, and I think it's 2 young girls lost their life. That is proper amateur business. So, thankfully, these fellas was at least a little bit more targeted, you know. They didn't just sue and start to shoot, you know what I mean?
So the thing is, which is our next conversation, next podcast, you know, the direction in which we headed. Does the music culture, what does that, you know, does it have any role to play in it? It's a whole next podcast.
Yeah.
But once again, you know, people, we just had to try and do better. Way.
Yeah, and start with us as individuals.
Right? What you could do, it's a bit late now for some of us. But next year, you could try and enter the U.S. Embassy lottery system. You could try to find different ways to migrate.
Boy.
But
see what's going on in California now? That is not even, that the worst place to go on in the States. I think Philadelphia or Chicago, some of them had a record number of people get shot in a weekend, you know. 80-something people get shot. I can't remember if it was Philadelphia or Chicago. And California, man, just running in. There's just like 50 or 60 people just running in a building and beating up the guard and taking Hermes bag.
I see that.
It's craziness. Of course, it's wildness to it, though. No, it's a big country, and it's you know, you could always find a portion of the place where it ain't wild.
Exactly. And once again, I think we will talk about that because all that is culture. All that is part of the culture right now because that is a thing. It's not people not doing that because they're hungry. They do that because it's an style thing.
Right. Crime is becoming, lawlessness and indiscipline is running the route now.
Yeah. So that's the next discussion. This is where we shut it down for today. Thanks again for viewing. Thanks again for watching. Any closing remarks before we go?
Eat healthy.
Eat healthy?
Yeah.
Wait, too late for me.
Not just for you, I mean for everybody. Eat healthy.
All right.
Eat healthy.
Cool. We going.